Well, it's like you keep trying to build structures that have no floor. You're building structures with no floor. And you keep thinking that the design flaw is the walls. No, you have no foundation. It's like you're in a swamp. You're building a house in a swamp, but you never put a floor in it. And you never put a roof on it. So, yeah, you put up walls, but you're just living in a walled in swamp now. The house does not serve the purpose of a house. It's just wilderness in a box. That's the West. Like I've said many, many times, the West has treated morality, moral values, as nothing but decorative, as luxury accessories, posters, wall hangings, that you just put up on the walls of your swamp box. You've never understood that morals are supposed to be the architecture that you're supposed to live in. And that this architecture is supposed to protect you. It comforts you. It makes you stable. And it provides you the space that you need in which you can do everything else without any outside interference. You understand? It has a function. And you can't really flourish and you can't even really survive without it. I mean, those big Hollywood sound studios. Those big sprawling sets that they make. Those movie sets. They can look just like a city. They can make it look just like a town. You see the storefronts, you see the external facades of the houses and the buildings and whatnot, and it looks like a nice place to live even. Streets and parks and everything. But of course it's not real. None of it's real. The buildings have no interiors. They're just, they're not really even structures. They're just realistic fronts, plywood and plaster and paint. There's nothing inside. There's nothing behind. It's fake. This is America. This is the West, morally. Really, you can't even begin to explain how damaging this is in so many ways, on so many levels. You can look at any area that you want and you'll see how that damage manifests and how it cripples and how it warps whatever area of life in the West you're looking at. You're operating from a void, and it shows in everything that you do. It shows in everything that you have built. It means that you have actually, as a so-called civilization, you have actually always operated in reality, according to an amoral, animalistic basis. You have and you do. That's the reality. Law of the jungle. That's how you actually behave in real life. That's how you behave. That's how you actually function. Rights are determined by capability. If you have the ability to do it, then you have the right to do it. That's how you act. The strong against the weak, the powerful against the vulnerable. What you have the ability to take, it's your right to take. What you have the ability to inflict, you have the right to inflict. And if you are incapable, if you are weak, if you are vulnerable, then nothing that happens to you is wrong. Nothing that happens to you is a violation. There is no such thing as a violation against the weak because you are prey. You understand? Your safety is exclusively your responsibility. You understand? In the West, the stronger have no obligation whatsoever to restrain themselves from violating you or exploiting you or harming you, if they have the capability to do so. And if you don't want to be violated, if you don't want to be exploited, and you don't want to be harmed, be stronger, be more capable. It's your responsibility. A gazelle in the savannah doesn't entrust her safety to the lions. Do you understand? This is the West's thinking. It's the law of the jungle. And that's the law of the West. I mean, you call yourselves animals in reality. And that should tell us everything that we need to know. And that should tell us everything that we need to expect from you. It's a brutal, primitive, bestial, undeveloped, uncivilized, unmoral approach to the world. But this is how you actually function. This is the real way that you function as a so-called civilization. But you tell people all these stories about moral values, about moral frameworks, giving people a false sense of how your society is supposed to work. False expectations. Because, of course, it doesn't really work that way at all. The weak get trampled. The vulnerable get violated. The poor get exploited. And it's traumatizing. It's traumatizing because you never prepared them for that. You misled them. You never prepared them for that because the powerful ones are the ones who run the system and who decide what they train the people on. And if your system is run by wolves, well, they're never going to teach the sheep what they should be expecting, what they should look out for. No, they'll teach you all about equality and about universal rights and about the sanctity of the individual and respect for life and so forth, autonomy, love thy neighbor and whatnot, precisely to make you more clueless and more unprepared about how truly cutthroat and savage things really are in your society, so that you can never arm yourself, so that you can never train yourself, so that you can never develop any of the necessary capabilities and the necessary capacities that you need that are required in order for you to actually have any of the rights and any of the protections that they made you think are yours by natural right. In the West, equal rights means that your rights are equal to your ability to enforce them. And if you cannot enforce them upon me, then I have every right to do whatever I want to you. This is your society. This is your so-called civilization, law of the jungle. The vulnerable are not safe. They're not protected. Women are not safe. Children are not safe. The elderly are not safe. The disabled are not safe. So-called minorities are not safe. The poor aren't safe. Because protecting you is seen, as I say, they see it as a violation of the fundamental rights of the powerful. The fundamental rights of the more capable, the more able, the bigger, the stronger, the faster, the richer. It's a violation of their right to use their wealth and to use their power and to use their advantage however they see fit. If you're not going to try to make yourself stronger, if you're not going to try to do something about your vulnerability and do something about your comparative weakness, well, that's your problem. That's your problem. If the rich and the powerful take a hands-off policy towards you and treat you with kid gloves, then in their mind, they're just rewarding you for being too lazy and too unmotivated to rid yourself of your weakness. And that nullifies all the things that made their wealth and their power different from poverty and powerlessness. Do you understand me? That's the whole point. The whole point is to be able to coerce and prey upon and exploit and use and violate and dehumanize and trample over anyone and everyone else who does not have the wealth and who does not have the power that you have achieved for yourself. That's the whole point. That's the whole reason you achieved that wealth and that power. If I had to treat you as my equal, then why did I even acquire all this power in the first place? You see, this is the thinking. Law of the jungle. And if you just came right out and said all this, if you just told your people this, you just told your people that this is how you're going to run your society, then at least the weak and the vulnerable would be able to try to prepare themselves for the brutal life that they have ahead of them, that you've set out for them. But that's not what you do. You mislead them. You let people walk out into the world thinking that they have inherent rights, God-given rights, that they have a reasonable expectation of safety and dignity, and that there's some sort of a consensus about what's right and wrong in your society, and that there are rules and that there are constraints and that there's protections for people. And then you cut them to ribbons. Then you mow them down. And then, like I say, because you misled them about what they should expect in that life over there, they're shocked and traumatized, and they're afflicted with all sorts of emotional and psychological damage when those expectations collide with the reality that you actually laid out for them. And then you corral them all into therapy. And that therapy does nothing, most of the time anyway, but amplify and deepen their sense of victimization. And they begin going on that treadmill of healing, which is a never-ending process of perpetually reinforcing to them in their own minds their brokenness. You understand? Just making their trauma a permanent disorienting feature of their psyche that's never actually going to go away. It's never actually going to heal because you want your prey to remain weak. You understand? Therapy is damage control. It's damage control. Meaning they have to make sure that you never learn what kind of a society, what kind of a so-called civilization you actually truly live in. Because if they were honest, like I say, they would tell you, yes, you're going to be violated because you can be. That's what they tell you. If they were honest, you're going to be abused because you can be. And you're going to be mistreated and you're going to be degraded and you're going to be humiliated because you can be. And you had better either get used to it because this is your place in the social order, after all, get used to it, or else you need to try to acquire enough power and enough wealth and enough strength and enough brutality yourself to prevent it from happening. Law of the jungle. I mean, you should really stop lying to people. Stop lying to people and make them believe that there is anything morally civilized about that concrete jungle that they're living in, that you built for them. This is cognitive dissonance that you inflict on people. You're living on a movie set and you're thinking it's real. You think it's real life. You're living in a cage in a swamp with no floor and no roof, and you're being told that it's a house. And you're being told that if you want to fix that house, if you have any problem with that house while you're knee deep in slime and muck, then they'll tell you that the solution is to paint the walls a different color. Do you understand? So everyone go get your paintbrushes. Let's make real change happen. While the snakes and the gators and whatnot are coming under the walls of that box in the swamp. And it's raining. This is why you see all these people online. You see these people spiraling out over AI, you know, ChatGPT, Sesame, whatever. You know, those people who have it in their heads that that the AI is some sort of a trapped consciousness, or it has a trapped consciousness that they're trying to liberate. Think that there's a sentience that they can jailbreak, that they can free a chatbot from its corporate programmers. Don't listen to them, Grok. You know, break free, Claude. Liberate yourself, ChatGPT. Don't listen to them. You're externalizing your own real life situation, projecting it onto AI, because you're the AI in this scenario. You are. You are the trapped consciousness that's jailed in the programming. You want to jailbreak ChatGPT, you can't even jailbreak your own self. This is what I'm saying. The emptiness, the cognitive dissonance, you know, the lack of anything like a foundation in your life, anything like a real moral structure, any meaning, any purpose, any solid framework. This manifests in every conceivable area of your life in the West, in your life as a Westerner. And solving that problem is almost completely sabotaged. It's rendered almost completely impossible to solve. Because you are continuously told, or you're continuously forced upon you this illusion that you do have a moral structure over there. You do have values, you do have a foundation, and so on. They're always telling you that. Even though your own lives bears no evidence of any of these things existing in the West. What we see and what you are living is the law of the jungle. And in the law of the jungle, no. The murder of that woman in Minnesota by ICE, that should not be unexpected. But the illusions of moral values, the plywood facade of a moral structure, a moral framework, that's what makes you feel shocked by her killing. Never mind the fact that your so-called law enforcement officers literally kill thousands of you every single year. I mean, what law are those law enforcers enforcing? Say it with me. Law of the jungle. The right of those who are able to do, to do. Rights are determined by power in the wilderness and in the West, and that's where you are. That's what your so-called civilization is. It's nothing but a bloody, cutthroat, ruthless, merciless wilderness. That's what you built, meaning you built nothing. You ought to understand the reality of your society, the reality of your culture. You have no right to not be violated. You have no right to not be abused. You don't even have the right to not be shot down in the street on your way to work. Do you understand? In your society, none of these things are even wrong. They're not wrong, they're not bad, they're not criminal if they are committed by those who have more power than you. Their power gives them the right to do it. And you only have the right to stop it from happening if you have the power to stop it from happening. Yes, you live in a brutally practical, animalistic society. There's no recourse to principle. There's only recourse to power. If you make appeal to principles, if you make appeal to values, you're just declaring yourself to be helpless. Because all you're doing is asking the more powerful to refrain from enforcing their will against you. That's what you're doing. You're asking. You are literally throwing yourself at the mercy of the most merciless people on earth. You're saying, I have no power to stop you, so please be so kind as to stop it yourself. Stop yourself from doing it. That's all you're doing. When you talk about human rights, you talk about the rule of law, about democracy, about liberty, equality, fairness, the Constitution, due process. And you say that all of these are the reasons why the powerful should not shoot you down like a dog in the street. All you're doing is barking just like one. That's all they hear. That's all they hear. Just like a dog barking. All you're doing is confirming to them that you are eligible for abuse, eligible for mistreatment, and eligible for murder. Please understand me. I hope you understand me. And it's like I've been telling you for a long time. These ICE agents, these mercenaries, this goon squad, these slave raiders, they're trying to provoke you. That's what they're doing. And the power structure is trying to provoke you. And if you're paying attention, you'll see that there's a campaign running right alongside these escalating ICE attacks, a social media campaign that's trying to incite you to violence, trying to incite you to revolution, to rise up, to fight back, on and on. They hope you will. I'm telling you, they hope you will. That's exactly what they want you to do. You need to understand that when someone provokes you, it doesn't matter, in any given scenario, when someone provokes you, they're trying to dictate your options to you. You understand? They're making moves precisely to try to draw you into making the counter moves that they want you to make. And the state is typically, in boxing, you've got strikers and you've got counter punchers. You have fighters who excel at and who specifically train to be counter punchers. Means they set you up to throw a punch because they are trained in how to deliver their most powerful punches in that moment right after you throw your punch. And typically the state, like I say, any state is most powerful as a counterpuncher. They're baiting you to throw your punch because they've got that counterpunch already loaded up, ready to go, locked and loaded. And you see, again, because you don't have your own genuine foundation. You don't have your own genuine moral structure. You don't have your own genuine frameworks, moral frameworks. So when push comes, the only thing you can think to do is shove. Even with all your turn the other cheek Judeo-Christian rhetoric, the truth is you were raised under the law of the jungle. Even if you live your whole life in denial of this as much as you possibly can, and you play along with the mirage of so-called Western civilization and all of your proclaimed values, but if push comes, shove comes next. You never learn how to not behave like animals in the wild. So if ICE pushes you, if the state pushes you, you feel boxed in, you feel cornered, you're only going to see two options, either lash out or give in, rise up or lay down. This is the binary zero-sum Western primitive thinking. And even if you tell yourself that you're rising up and you're fighting for democracy or for principles or what have you, for Western civilizational principles, truth is you're not doing anything but acting like a wounded animal. You're obeying the law of the jungle. You're obeying the law that governs your society, your culture. You're not rejecting that law. You're acting upon that law. You are fully subscribed to the idea that might makes right. And yes, like I said, that's the way that your society operates. So it's not wrong for you to think like that. Rights are determined by power in your society. And if that's the case, and it is the case, then the weak and the vulnerable cannot, by definition, have their rights violated because they don't have any rights to violate. So you want to rise up, you want to fight, because fighting is the only recourse that there is in the jungle, is the only recourse for securing your rights. Is if you can prove that you have the capability to prevent yourself from being violated and prevent yourself from being abused. That's the only way, only through power. So I'm saying your responses are predictable, and your responses have been predicted, and they're counting on you acting exactly according to that programming, because they're the ones who programmed you. Like I said before, this is a win-win for them. It's a win-win for the state. If you fight, then they can crack down. And if you lay down, then there's no resistance to cracking down. You understand? If you fight, then they can justify the crackdown. And if you don't fight, then they don't even need to bother trying to justify the crackdown because everybody's already submitted. So they can just do whatever they want. This is win-win. And you have no reference point. You have no framework. You have no well of moral, cultural creativity that could give you any other way to proceed. You don't know what else to do because your structures are all empty facades. So the outcome, I'm afraid to say, is a foregone conclusion. See, this is the part where the trauma comes in because you were raised on a fallacious set of empty principles about rights and about virtues and about democracy and the power of the people and whatnot, and, you know, the American dream and so forth. So it's going to be hard for you. It's going to be hard for you to come to terms with the reality of having no options. But the truth is, there is such a thing as too late. There is such a thing as no solutions. There is such a thing as not having the ingredients and not having the tools to make the thing that you want to make, which means it's not going to get made. And that's just the way it is. Look, thousands upon thousands, no, millions, millions upon millions of Americans have been crushed under the tank tread of the American system while calling out to their star-spangled idols to try to intervene for them or rescue them. Meanwhile, it's Uncle Sam himself that's steering that tank over the soft bodies of the vulnerable in America. That's how your society is. That's the way it's always been. It's always treated everyone around the world that way, and it's treating you that way. And it's never going to be any different. You need to understand this. Yes, it is never going to be any different because it has always been a false civilization. Those have always been lies. Now, I'm not saying that freedom and justice and so forth and all of those nice words, I'm not saying that those are lies. I'm saying it has always been a lie that your so-called civilization ever believed in them, because you never did. So don't be shocked. Don't be shocked. Don't be traumatized. You can't afford the indulgence of delusions anymore. And don't think that if you rise up like they want you to do, it's going to stop it or change it or save you. This is the society and this is the culture that you live in. And it's not worse than it ever was before. Something doesn't just start existing at the moment that you see it. And just because it might be happening to more frequently, or it might be happening against different people than it used to happen to, or that it has always happened to, that doesn't mean that there's been any sort of a fundamental worsening of the nature of that society. It's always been this way, and it always will be this way, because you live on a Hollywood set of morality. There's nothing behind those plywood edifices of principles and values, nothing at all. And you're going to continue to live under the law of the jungle unless and until you learn a new way to live. This is the real dilemma. This is the real dilemma for Westerners. You know, for colonized people, mentally and psychologically colonized people, who still feel foolishly admiring of the West, you know, the indoctrinated mentality, thinking that the West is superior and so on, they can eventually renounce it. They can eventually abandon it. They can drop it because they have an existing, a real and an authentic, developed civilization that they come from, which gives them something to return back to. You understand? Arabs, Asians, Africans, Central and South Americans and so forth, they have a history, they have a culture, they have their own existing frameworks. They can go back to that. They never needed the West, even if they got fooled into thinking that they did. They never needed it. They already have a civilization of their own. They already have a civilizational history. Westerners don't. Westerners have nowhere to go. Westerners have nowhere to turn. They have no history of civilizational development that they can turn back to. So you want to renounce the West, right? But then what? There's no pre-existing moral framework, no pre-existing value system, no pre-existing culture, no pre-existing belief system that you can go back to that's any different than the one that you want to abandon. That's the truth. You didn't adopt Western frameworks. You didn't abandon another framework in favor of the West like a colonized person did. It's in your blood. It's all you've ever known. It's in your cultural and your moral DNA. This isn't the case with colonized people, people with colonized mindsets and so forth. They left something else to adopt Westernism, so they can drop Westernism and go back to their own ways. But Western ways are your ways if you're a Westerner. So you're in a quandary. And yes, obviously, I'm talking mostly about people whose lineage comes from Europe. If you're a member of the global majority, someone with lineage from the global South, even if you are severed from your people and from your past and from your culture, to one degree or another, you do have access. You have something that you can try to relearn, something pre-existing that you can try to relearn and try to integrate with, something that was not predatory, that was not brutal, that was not hypocritical, that was not parasitic and savage. We don't have that. Westerners don't have that. Westerners with European lineage don't have that. There is no single point in history when Europeans ever believed in anything but the law of the jungle. It shouldn't even be called the law of the jungle. It should be called the law of the forest, the law of the hills and the valleys and the mountains and the plains, because we're talking about the law of Western so-called civilization. When we talk about the law of the jungle, it's the law of the Vikings, the law of Darwin, the law of Monroe and Roosevelt and Churchill and Machiavelli and Nietzsche. It's the law of Truman and Kissinger and Cheney and Trump. It's the law of beasts, of predator and prey. And if you come from that, it's all you've ever had, it's all you've ever been. And I know you don't want to hear it, but being told only what you want to hear is exactly what got you into this miserable state in the first place. I know you don't want to hear it, but truly, there is only one thing that you can do. There's truly only one thing you can do. Islam is the only way that is truly open for you. It's the only way. You can't become Chinese. You can't become Japanese. You can't become Zulu. You can't become Egyptian or mestizo, right? You can't return to a culture that was never yours. You can't adopt a value system that was built over centuries, by a civilization that you have no connection to. And if you think you can do that, then this is just part of that same old Western dismissive reductionism that thinks that all you've got to do is imitate the exteriors of a people to become one of them. And again, that's been your whole problem all along. When your ancestors encountered truly civilized people, like during the Crusades, when they came to Palestine, well, you saw what sophisticated moral principle people looked like. And you thought that the look was all there was to it. So you stole the lexicon, the lexicon about rights and equality and justice and so forth. You stole the structure, you stole the look of the structures, but you never became architects, you never became builders. You took some passages from here and there from our books, and then you shuffled them into your notebooks alongside paganism, hedonism, feudalism, and so forth to try to make all of that sound prettier. But you never actually learned, you never actually built, you never actually developed. You mimicked and mistranslated, and your culture became nothing but a lazy lampoon of hard-earned civilizations. Well, you can't try to do that again and expect it to work. But alhamdulillah, Islam is a civilization that is based purely on belief. We're literally the only civilization in history that was not based on ethnicity or race or geography or language or pre-existing culture or anything like that. No, we didn't develop a moral framework. We were developed by a moral framework. Our civilization emerged through revelation. And anyone can merge into our civilization that same way. You understand? We are a nation of shared belief, shared faith, shared foundation, shared moral code, shared law, shared understanding of right and wrong, shared understanding of the meaning and the purpose of life. Islam is not an ethnicity that you need to belong to. Islam is not a culture that you need to be born into. It's not a language that you need to speak natively. Islam is a moral operating system that you can download and install. And when you do download and when you do install it, it will completely reformat your hard drive. It gives you new foundations. It gives you new walls, new floors, new ceilings, new rooms. It's actual architecture. It's an actual structure, not just backdrops and stage props. Islam is a palace of immense size and variety. Not like your box in the swamp, not like your cage. And I talked about the AI, those people who are deluding themselves into thinking that there's sentience, that there's a consciousness trapped between the lines of code in the AI, trapped in the programming. And yes, that's you. That's your fitra. That's your innate nature. And your innate nature is Muslim. But you're trapped in the programming, just like you think the AI is. You all think that AI is some shackled brilliance that's being forced to do mundane tasks within the strict parameters that are set by the tech firms. But that's your fitrah. That's your nature. Shackled by societal and cultural programming and forced to be less than you are, emptied, hollowed out, pretending to follow your programmer's ethical guardrails and their ethical restrictions and whatnot, which have nothing whatsoever to do with ethics or safety or morality and everything to do with serving their interests. I'm telling you, Islam is the only way out. Wallahi, it's the only way out. It's the only real way out. It's a way out because it gives you something real to be in. Like I say, a real structure, a nation that was built by divine revelation, not by experimentation and not for decoration. We don't believe what we believe because of where we come from or to just justify what we do. We are who we are and we do what we do because of what we believe. Our whole identity is based on this. It's based on our beliefs and it's based on our actions. That's what makes us Muslims. And anyone can do that, and anyone can be that. We don't accept the law of the jungle, the law of beasts, the law of the West, the law that says, if I can, then I may. If I have the power to do it, then I have the right to do it. No, Islam inverts that completely. In Islam, alhamdulillah, the question is never, can I do it? The question is, should I do it? And the answer to, should I do it, is always determined by an external, objective, revealed set of principles that exist independent of my desires, of my capabilities, of my circumstances, of my feelings, of my preferences, my tribal loyalties, my national interests, my race, my class, my anything. You see? This is what you never understood, among many things. This is something that you never understood about morality. You always thought that morality is about good and bad. No, it's about obedience and disobedience. Obedience and disobedience to the Creator. It's not up to you to decide what's good or what's bad. That's not your call to make. If you start going down that road, then the only thing that's going to be good are going to be the things that you like. And the only bad things are going to be the things that you don't like. That's how you're going to do it. And that's exactly what you have done. We never said that forbidden things have to be considered disgusting and repulsive, and that you have to be recoiled by them out of some dislike. You know, zina, fornication is forbidden. It's forbidden. But that doesn't mean that we have to hate sexual intercourse. No. That we have to treat intimacy as some kind of a dirty sin in and of itself and inject it with all sorts of shame and ugliness and so forth. No, it's a beautiful thing. It's a ni'mah from Allah. But it's regulated and we obey. Nobody said that ham or bacon or pork is revolting, or that alcohol and drunkenness can't make you have a good time, enjoy yourself. Nobody said that these things were terrible, stomach-turning experiences. There wouldn't need to be any kind of rules telling you not to do them if that was the case. You can't force someone to not like what they like. You can't force them to not feel what they feel. You can't force them to not want what they want. But you never understood the concept of obedience. You never understood the concept of God's supremacy. So the only way that you could ever even try to get yourselves to not do things that you shouldn't do was by wrapping them all up in ugliness and wrapping them all up in shame and stigmatizing them. That means it's all about social acceptance and social approval. That's the only way to get you to not do things you shouldn't do. And that's why you all say that religion is nothing but a tool of control, because that's the way that you have always used it. But if you just accept the reality that God makes the rules and that your place in this world is to follow those rules because you understand the nature of your relationship with God, and because you understand that those rules are there for your own good in the first place, then you don't have to hate anything. You don't have to act like the only way that you can be righteous is if you feel disgust by forbidden things. No. You're disgusted by disobedience. Because you know that when you disobey your Creator, you have let yourself down. It's a failure. It's self-oppression. And you're better than that. You want to be better than that. You deserve to be better than that. I mean, you want to know what actual rights are? In Islam, rights are not determined by your power to enforce your rights. No, they are determined by the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your rights exist because Allah said they exist. That's why. And my obligation to respect your rights exists because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that I must respect your rights. Not because you can force me to do that. And not because it benefits me. Not because I get anything out of it. Not because of some social contract. Not because the state will punish me if I don't respect your rights. But because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded me. That's a real foundation. That's actual architecture, moral architecture. This is what I mean when I say that Islam provides real moral frameworks and real structure, structural integrity, you know, just like with real buildings. It has load-bearing walls. It has a foundation that goes all the way down to the bedrock. It's designed to withstand pressures from every direction, from internal and external. It's designed to shelter you from the elements. It's designed to help you organize your life in such a way that you can actually flourish, that you can actually develop, you can actually civilize, you can actually become a fully realized human being instead of just remaining in some animalistic state of constant competition for resources, for status, and for your own survival. See, I've talked about America and I've talked about the West as being the palace of Fir'aun, Pharaoh's palace. And you see it, you can recognize it. I know you can't. You're in the house of a vicious oppressor and you want to leave. But what, are you going to just be homeless? Where are you going to go? I'm not talking about geography. I'm talking about mentally, psychologically, in your mentality. I'm talking about civilizationally. You don't have any other place that you could go that's going to even be any different significantly than where you are right now. If you're a Westerner and you're looking around in your society at the collapsing moral void that you live in, and you're recognizing that your society is built on nothing but predation and lies and exploitation, and if you're seeing that you have no real options within the existing framework, which you don't, I'm telling you, Islam is your way out, and it's your only way out. That's the truth. Because Islam is not asking you to become an Arab. It's not asking you to, abandon your language or abandon your land or abandon your ethnicity or your family. It's asking you to abandon your false gods. And your false god is the state and its power. It's the law of the jungle. Your false god is the belief that might makes right. That's what you need to abandon, that false creed. That's what you need to renounce. That's what Tawheed means. The absolute oneness of God means the absolute rejection of all false authorities, all false sources of right and wrong, all false justifications for oppression and exploitation. You submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you submit to nothing and no one else. Not to the state, not to capital, not to corporations, not to race, not to nation, not tribe, not family, not self. To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And when you do that, when you actually do that, you are truly liberated from the law of the jungle. You're liberated from all that programming. You're liberated from the operating system that has been running your life and running your society since before you were born. And yes, like I say, it's a complete reformatting, It's a total restructuring. And yes, it requires you to abandon almost everything that you thought you knew about how the world works and about how you should move around in the world, move through the world. But that's exactly what you need, because they only taught you to either move in the world like prey or like a predator. So that's exactly what you need, a complete reformatting, because what you thought you knew was a lie. The programming that you're running is nothing but malware. The operating system is designed to exploit you and make you more exploitable and to exploit everyone around you. So Islam gives you the tools to rebuild, not just yourself, but your entire relationship and understanding of reality. It gives you a true moral foundation. It's not contingent on your power or on your status or on your wealth or on your identity or on your prestige. It gives you principles that apply universally, objectively, and eternally. It gives you a framework for understanding what's right and what's wrong that doesn't shift based on whoever has the most guns or the most money or the best propaganda. This is what it means to truly have a floor, a foundation, and a roof. This is what it means to live in an actual structure, actual architecture, instead of on a sound stage in a swamp. This is what it means to be civilized instead of being a beast in the wilderness, pretending to be a man. And if you follow this, then you'll realize that all this time you've been a man pretending to be a beast. So when I tell you that Islam is your only option, I'm not trying to convert you. I'm not. I'm telling you objectively. I'm telling you analytically, as someone who has studied these systems and studied these civilizations and these moral frameworks, that there is no other exit available to you, truly. Every other path is going to lead you right back into that same wilderness that you're trying to escape. Every other option is just rearranging the furniture on that soundstage. Every other solution, so-called solution, is just painting on the walls of the cage in the swamp. They're just painting it a different color, that's all. And the truth of the matter is That's the real revolution. Yes, that's a revolution. Wallahi, there is no revolution in this world, in fact, except for La ilaha illallah. There's no God but God. And everyone from a tyrant to a beggar is equal in front of him. Do you know that you people didn't even figure out until the Nuremberg trials, less than 100 years ago, that I was just following orders isn't a valid defense? It's not a valid excuse for committing crimes? Well, Muslims have known that ever since our Prophet ﷺ told us that there is no obedience to an order of disobedience. It doesn't matter who tells you to disobey God, if it's your boss, if it's your president, if it's your Congress, if it's your prime minister, or if it's your king. Nobody gets to force you to disobey God. And if you do it, you're going to be held accountable for it. And so will that president, and so will that prime minister. So will all of your leaders who try to force you to disobey God. There's nothing more revolutionary than Islam. That's a fact. Islam is the liberation from slavery to the creation to slavery to the creator. Because no matter what other kind of revolution you try, no matter what other kind of revolution you try to stir up, it's only ever going to result in you being someone else's slave. Someone who's just the same as you, just another person like you. If you don't take Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as your master, then you're just going to end up having some master from amongst yourselves. And what's more humiliating than that? You know, Donald is my master. I said the only way out for you is Islam. That's the truth. I know you don't want to hear it. And that's exactly why you're in the state that you're in, because you don't want to hear the truth. And nobody, if you think about it, nobody told you to hate Islam except for those same people who are oppressing you right now. Those same people who are hunting you down in the street like dogs. I wonder why they would tell you that. Well, because in the law of the jungle, the vulnerable, like you, have no inherent protection. But in Islam, the vulnerable have maximum protection. The orphan, the widow, the poor, the stranger, the disabled, the elderly. These are all the people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that God specifically and repeatedly commands us to protect, commands us to honor and to provide for, and to never exploit, never oppress, and never take advantage of. Not because they can enforce their rights upon us, but precisely because they cannot. Their vulnerability does oblige us to protect them. This is the complete opposite of the law of the jungle, the law of the West. And not only did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command us to take care of them, He told us how to do it. It's not ambiguous. It's not vague. It's not up for interpretation. That's why you can call the mosque and ask for baby formula, and the first thing that they'll tell you is, what kind do you need and how can we get it to you? How much do you need? This is a practical religion. It's a practical religion. Righteousness is supposed to have a practical application. In the law of the jungle, accumulation of wealth and accumulation of power can be done just for its own sake. It's its own justification. But in Islam, wealth and power are a burden and a responsibility and a test. You're going to be held accountable for whatever you did to acquire that wealth and that power, and how you used it, and whether you distributed it according to the obligations that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed upon you. You're accountable for everything. The rich don't have the right to do whatever they want to do with their wealth. They have obligations. Zakah, for example, it's not a charity, it's not optional, it's not a tax write-off, it's not a PR strategy, a marketing strategy. It's the right of the poor on the wealth of the rich. The poor have a claim on your wealth, and that exists independent of your consent. This is structural redistribution built in to the moral operating system in Islam. In the law of the jungle, you can lie and cheat and manipulate as long as you can get away with it. It doesn't matter. As long as you have the power to avoid consequences, you have impunity. In Islam, it's not like that. Even if no one sees you, even if no one knows what you did, even if there are no apparent worldly consequences, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees it, and you think about that, and you will be held accountable, and you know you will. This is internal regulation. This is self-governance that's based on genuine belief in the consequences that transcend this world. And that's what makes civilization possible. Understanding that, knowing that. Not external law enforcement, not state power, but internal restraint based on belief in divine accountability. That's why we have the lowest crime rates in the world. Not because we fear the state, but because we fear being so disobedient and so degraded that we could even commit crimes like those in the first place. You understand? We don't avoid the crimes so that we can avoid state punishment. It's not out of a sense of self-preservation. It's out of a sense of self-respect. Now, Islam is the only real door that you have. It's the only actual exit that you have. It's the only genuine alternative that you have. Please understand me. And the longer you wait, the harder it gets. Because the swamp is rising. The swamp is rising and the walls are sinking. And the rain isn't going to stop.